We are now officially 1 week away from opening day. The Seattle Mariners play a baseball game that actually matters in just 7 days. So today, Joe and I are going to go over the opening day roster. We're going to include a lineup here at the end and some surprise guys that we're going to have in there, maybe in the bullpen, and maybe a few guys on the bench that you were not expecting. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 71 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Marlboro Jesus episode of the Hit It Here podcast. And I'm here with Joe. Joe, how are you?
I don't condone lying on this podcast. So you saying there's going to be some surprise names here makes me feel like you've lied to me in the green room leading up to this recording session. My
What?
roster's kind of like straightforward, cut and dry, you know? And I'm feeling good about the roster. I'm feeling pretty okay. It's pretty deep compared to I think previous years. And
Mhm.
I think something that I commended a lot of the previous teams was the fact that I felt okay at certain positions with like the positional flexibility. Now this year, I'm pretty confident like all around the diamond. Maybe aside from like shortstop, because do we have a true backup shortstop? Not really. Like you've got Moore, Urias, Polanco could technically. Like a lot of the guys that'll be rotating around your infield can, but like realistically, there's not really a true backup shortstop. But that's okay because JP Crawford's the captain for the reason. And that's not a question mark going into the opening day roster crunch. There's only a couple spots that you really need to kind of like hedge your bets on whether or not they're going to be a certain guy or another guy, like Dom Canzone, whatever, right? But of course, a quick word from Bet Online. I don't need to be the one to tell you guys this, but the tournament is here. And I'm not talking the Soul Series between the Padres and the Dodgers kicking off the 2024 MLB regular season. I'm talking about March Madness, baby. And BetOnline is your bracket headquarters for this season with the best bracket contest out there and odds, lines, and info on every game and every round, right up until the national championship. So if you pick a 13 seed to take down the 4 seed, like there seems to be one every single year, you best be taking that bet on BetOnline. It's the best place to do it. You can access the most up to the minute wagering information anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices, and even track your bracket real time all the way through the tournament. And head to BetOnline today and get in on all the action. And when you get there, remember to use promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, for your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. So obviously we have to start in the more set in stone areas. Colton, for the starting rotation, obviously there's 5 guys that will be in the starting rotation for the Seattle Mariners and most teams across baseball, I would say, for opening day. Locking in on the 26-man roster. Those 5 guys, tell me if you have any disagreements, are Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, and Brian Wu.
No, I think I mean, it's pretty clear as long as nobody gets injured between now and opening day that is going to be your starting rotation. There's, of course, the possibility that maybe they want to go with 6 and have Emerson Hancock start the year in the rotation as well. I doubt that's going to happen. I think that Hancock is going to start down in the minor leagues, or maybe, I mean, it's possible he starts in the bullpen as well. I don't have him starting the bullpen, but maybe. But those starting 5 are absolute locks with Luis Castillo going on opening day versus Brian Bayo. So I think that is, when it comes to this roster, the most clear part of it.
I think had there been more, I think, urgency from the front office or just like management in general to kind of showcase what Emerson Hancock had this spring, I think maybe that argument of him starting over Brian Wu and like limiting Wu's innings in that way would have been a conversation right here. But like everything that's been just happening all spring does not point me in that direction. And not to say that I'd be upset either way. I probably prefer Wu over Hancock pretty, most days of the week. Maybe not twice on Sunday, though. You know what I mean? And whether or not we see Hancock get major league starts this year with if there's injuries or, they do want to slow down Wu, say in the middle of the season, or if he's struggling at any point, then you can like have that option. But yeah, Hancock, he's kind of like the odd odd man out. Whoa. He's on the outside looking in. I was combining so many phrases there. And I also do not have him making my bullpen. So finishing out the pitching staff here, ninth inning guy realistically start the year is Andres Munoz.
Yeah, name the locks really quick. I think that Munoz is set to be one of the best relievers in all of baseball. And he's going to have to step up a little bit in the first month or so because obviously with Matt Brash, we're not going to have Matt Brash on here. We're not going to have Gregory Santos on here simply because they're not going to be able to pitch for the first little bit, even if it's just a little bit in April. It's not part of the opening day roster. So looking at this roster as it stands right now, yes, Andres Munoz, your go-to ninth inning guy. I think Ryan Stanek's probably the next guy.
Yeah, Stanek has to be there right after Munoz, feeding to him, or if Munoz pitched the day before, you're giving Stanek the ninth. A guy that hasn't seen a ton of action in spring, just because we did sign him kind of late, but that's just the natural progression there. He will be ready for opening day, without a doubt in my mind. Up next, I'd say maybe the next two. I think we got a pair of lefties in the pen right here as locks for Gabe Spire and Taylor Saucedo.
Yeah, I think that Spire last year was one of the most underrated relievers in all of baseball. Obviously, his swing and miss stuff was very, very good. Had a little bit of a rough spring so far, but maybe he's working on some things. I don't think we've seen him that much in spring. But
when we've seen him, he's gotten kind of hit around. But again, it's spring. You know, when they're playing bad, spring training stats don't matter. When Mitch Haniger's hitting 480, they matter the world to everybody, right? That's just how, being a fan works. And whether that's bias, I don't care.
We're more looking at, is Mitch Haniger healthy? Is he able to make contact with a baseball?
Yeah.
Like, if you ask me in 2 months' time what Mitch Haniger hit in spring training, I'm not going to know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to know that he did pretty well. Mm-hmm. Like, just for like Luke Raley, you asked me how he's performed this spring, I don't know, other than the fact that he has not been great.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got.
And whether or not, when we're in the season, if Spire is now pitching to his regular form, it's like, okay, great. We kind of saw this coming. If he's still some hiccups there, his role will just get reduced. Like he will get moved out of probably the 7th or 6th inning and into a more damage control situation where like you're already losing that game. He might go in, and other guys will need to step up.
Right. So I think that moves us on to another guy who I think is probably a lock for this bullpen, and that is Trent Thornton. Mm-hmm. I don't know for sure. The Mariners said they were going to stretch him out a little bit, make him more of a long guy. Haven't really seen much of that so far, have we?
I don't think so. If it's just like bullpen stuff that they're doing, maybe that's where it's happening, and they just kind of said that as a safety net situation of like, yeah, we're doing this because why not? But Trent Thornton, he will be in your bullpen on opening day, mainly just because I'd say the injuries to Brash and Santos. Like if Brash and Santos were available, Thornton would probably be a fringe pick or like close to that, along with the next guy up for me, Austin Both. I think is another guy that can go 1+ innings for you at a pretty regular basis, and he's the Trevor Gott signing from last year. If he stays with the team the whole year, great. If he doesn't, oh well. It's one of those situations where he is a dependable major league arm for you at this point in time. When the bullpen is fully operational, fully healthy, it's really going to depend on who's pitching well at that time, like who kind of gets the axe,
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that goes for our next two guys, because I think this is where things get a little bit interesting. The last two spots in the bullpen, because again, Brash and Santos are injured. We both don't think that Carlos Vargas is ready. We think that he should spend some time down in the minor leagues, especially with this Mariners pitching lab. And so the first one I want to talk about is Tyson Miller. He's looked really, really good this spring. Joe, what have you seen out of Miller?
Paul Sewald. That's that. End of story. Like the Paul Sewald comps are running rampant all across Mariners internet, social, whatever, which is good. I think he's thrown 8 innings of scoreless ball in spring. I think that's what it was. It's a guy that you're not going to throw into that role. You're not going to give him high leverage innings immediately. He will pitch well in situations, and whether or not you elevate his role after that is kind of, I think, where we could see him develop. And he's also a guy that can give you, like both, an extra inning if you need to, like maybe not 2, but like 1, and then carry over into the next inning if there's a matchup that you like, or a matchup that you don't necessarily want to have like Spire or Saucedo, whoever, go in and face. So Miller, he has definitely pitched himself into a spot in this bullpen without a doubt in my mind. Like out of all the arms in the pile, obviously they've been cutting down on the roster periodically throughout the spring, and the roster's at what, 41?
Yep.
You said? And so Miller, the fact that he's still here, and given how, like we said, like Carlos Vargas hasn't seemed ready, Colin Snyder has been pretty rough.
Brett DeGeist,
yeah. Crable already got sent to minor league camp along with Ty Buttrey. So we've kind of outed Colin Snyder. We have mentioned that Carlos Vargas is not there. My last guy, and I don't think there's another guy that it can be for you. Yes?
Can I mention one more thing about Tyson Miller here?
Yes, of course.
Really, it is his arm slot that people are really interested in with Tyson Miller,
Mm,
but keep in mind he is not on the 40-man roster. So the Mariners would have to select him and add him to the 40-man roster if they wanted to carry him this season. There'll be a corresponding move that we'll make a little bit later on in this episode of the podcast where he can be added. But just keep that in mind as we're going through this. There are some guys that are not on 40-man rosters that we will be adding, and Tyson Miller is one of them.
it's a good point to bring up. Is Cody Bolton on the 40-man roster?
Yes, Cody
Yes.
Bolton is.
And
Yes.
he is my last guy in the pen. Not a sexy pick by any means. I think with how Buttrey was looking, I could have like given it to him over Bolton, but you know, we got Bolton at the very beginning of the offseason. I don't know. Like I'm not in love with him being the final pick necessarily, but it's an arm that you probably don't even really need to see that much. Could it just be a guy that you throw out there if you're losing? Yeah, maybe. He could be like the Dominic Leone from the end of last year. I know. Like I had to, did I need to say his name? No, probably not, but it happened. And I can't go back on it now. So yeah,
Hmm.
Cody Bolton is my last guy in the pen. Colton, I'm assuming you are also in that camp.
Yeah, what's wrong with Cody Bolton, bro?
Eh, just
He's
doesn't.
he also hasn't given up a run.
Yeah, but like, just wait.
6 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts, a .67 WHIP.
Just wait.
Just wait.
Just you wait.
I mean, let me just scroll down here. Let's take a look at Tyson Miller really quick. So comparing Bolton to Tyson Miller here, Joe. Bolton has pitched 6 games, 6 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts with a .67 WHIP. Tyson Miller 5 games, 8 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, and a .88 WHIP. So yes, you know what? When it comes down to it, Cody Bolton is the worst of the two, I guess.
Yeah, but
But
he's definitely been the better of everybody else. I'm not
right.
me saying that's not like the sexy pick. I'm not satisfied with it. Isn't me like necessarily slighting
Hmm.
Cody Bolton in any way. It's just I think out of maybe I just wanted more guys to be better. Maybe I wanted Mauricio Rivera to not be, 4 miles per hour down on his fastball, and Kirby Snead to not be giving up tons of runs left and right, and Colin Snyder not being, a walking 2-run inning. You know what I mean? Like maybe I had higher hopes, and the fact that Cody Bolton's the guy that kind of like edged everybody out wouldn't have been my pick at the beginning of the offseason, truthfully.
Yeah, I think that going into it, I mean, Edward Brizardo is another one who is just we haven't seen like at
Mm-hmm.
all, I don't think. And so obviously it said he was going to be a little slow to spring training. That's another injury we didn't even mention, who was on the roster at the end of the year last year. So our bullpen is as follows. From the bottom to the top here, we have Cody Bolton and Tyson Miller, Austin Voth, Trent Thornton, Taylor Saucedo, Gabe Spire, Ryan Stanek, and Andres Munoz. Obviously, when everyone's healthy, we probably lose, I would assume, Bolton and either Voth or Miller, depending on how they're pitching at the time,
Yeah.
for Brash and Santos, which makes that back end of the bullpen Stanek, Brash, Santos, Munoz, with Spire, Saucedo, probably Thornton, and then one of Miller or Voth. That's crazy.
And
That's
that
crazy good.
and even if like Vargas starts lighting it up and like figures out how to dial it in, then you could see another, 99 to 102 guy enter the pen that way. But yeah, the bullpen is going to be nasty at full strength. It's just it's a matter of when, not if.
Mm-hmm. So that brings us to the offensive side of things for the opening day roster. It leaves us with another 13 guys that we can talk about here. Where do you want to start? You want to start with the bench? I feel like we have to, right?
Either you start with the bench or you start with the obvious guys that are going to be locks, which is kind of how we started the pitching. So
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So
okay.
obviously, like we talked about earlier, JP Crawford is your opening day shortstop. There's no doubt about that. Like
Capitano.
JP, the captain, he has shown in spring again this year that he came to play. He's a guy that looks so much better than he did even a few years ago, and he is kind of the heart and soul of this ball club now. JP Crawford, in my opinion, has quickly become one of the most improved players on this team over the past couple of years, and having him hit leadoff, which we'll get into the lineup here in a little bit, but having him hit leadoff last year was a huge, huge boost for the Mariners.
There's just not a lot of competition, I think, at certain positions for good reason, because guys have earned their keep at that position and should just be locks regardless. Like Julio is like duh. It goes without saying why Julio Rodriguez is your starting center fielder, the superstar on your team. Jorge Polanco, I think, is a lock, guaranteed. Like he has been a hitting machine all spring training for second base. And whether or not you like there's points in time in the offseason where you talked about acquiring him to be part of the platoon with Rojas, but now he's just like the main second baseman, which is, I think, more than great because he's looked really good. Cal Raleigh obviously would be your opening day catcher, and then Ty France at first base. France is the last one I'm going to mention there just because as far as positional depth, there is not another first baseman on this roster that you can really play over him or justify playing over him at this point in time. Just based on how people have looked in spring, how the roster outlook is kind of constructed, those are like the guaranteed locks for me. Aside, I guess I didn't say Mitch Garver, but like I'm thinking around the diamond, the DH doesn't really play, but Garver obviously he will be the DH there. That leaves us with three positions, both corner outfield spots and third base.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the easiest one to lock in right now is Mitch Haniger in right field. Like
I agree.
if Mitch is not the opening day right fielder, like either A, he's injured, or B, Scott Service is out of his gourd. You know what I mean?
Fire
Like,
Scott Service.
Fire Scott. Yeah, I think that, I mean, can you imagine the ovation when Mitch runs onto the field on opening day? Oh my God, I'm gonna scream like a little schoolgirl. Yeah, I mean, he was only gone for a year, but man,
It felt like an
so
eternity.
it really did. I'm so happy that he's back. So Mitch, I feel like, is a lock in right field. Left field is a little bit more interesting. I
Mm-hmm.
think that the Rayleigh and Canzone conversation is one that has picked up a lot more steam in recent days because of how well Canzone's been playing and how well Rayleigh is playing. If you had to pick, Joe, who is your starting left fielder?
Starting left fielder for me on opening day against Brian Bayo and the Boston Red Sox is Dominic Canzone.
Mm-hmm.
He has earned his keep. He is hitting well. And that's, again, no discredit to Luke Rayleigh and where the Mariners kind of probably had him figured as far as like how he plays into this lineup and to this roster in general. Because he will still get a large amount of at-bats this year. There's no way he doesn't get, probably around like 400, depending on how well other guys around him are playing. But Dom Canzone is just, it's night and day between him and Rayleigh right now as far as like looking ready for like just opening day because Canzone is smoking the ball. He's hitting around 300. I don't know if he brought his average above 300 again, but he's absolutely just scorched earth right now. And Luke Rayleigh's got what, two, maybe three
Now.
hits, but also with him, he tried to steal second, I think, in yesterday's game, and came up a little limp as well. But I don't know if that's a long-term thing, like, Cal's injured heel or whatever it was from when he tried to steal second.
He didn't try, he succeeded.
Sorry, on his stolen base attempt, successful attempt.
I watched it happen live and I yelled, "Oh my God!
He's moving!" So with even performance aside, I think with only 7 days to kind of like monitor injury concern, I guess, for Luke Rayleigh, you're probably going to give him like, all right, like you'll get the second day or, you'll see the third day, however it works. But Dom Canzone has played his way into left field. You've been nodding your head the entire time. I don't think we disagree.
I mean, I'm the one that tweeted
Yeah.
that Dom Canzone has earned the opening day start. Like he has. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
with how good that he has looked, and we all know the potential with Dom Canzone and how everyone's saying he could be the breakout player of the year and whatnot. I know that last year we were saying Dom Canzone probably should not be the everyday starter, and I still don't think he should be every day. But he has earned it. He's earned it. There's no two ways around it. Dom Canzone has been one of the best players for the Mariners in spring. You cannot go into opening day and not start him. You just can't. Luke Rayleigh, yes, has struggled, but we know what he did last year and his potential. But Dom Canzone has just been the all-around better player so far. Dom Canzone is my opening day left fielder. As for third base, this one is interesting because Rojas hasn't looked spectacular in spring. He hasn't been bad,
Mm-hmm.
but he hasn't been spectacular. Urias has been pretty good offensively in spring. I think I lean towards Rojas here if we're really doing a platoon with lefty-righty splits. And obviously Bayo being a right-handed pitcher, I would have Rojas starting there at third base.
I agree. He has slowed down. Rojas started off spring like looking pretty good, like smacking the ball, pulling the ball really hard in the air, but he has slowed down a little bit. But like you said, if it's a true platoon over at third, whether that is with Luis Urias or Brian Anderson and Josh Rojas, I think Josh Rojas is guaranteed one side of that equation. And against a right-handed pitcher on opening day, Josh Rojas will be starting. He's not gonna, not like MLB The Show where he's batting leadoff for the Seattle Mariners like he was for me in that simulation. He'll be, and we'll get to lineup like you said, soon-ish. He's gonna be towards the bottom, but yeah, Rojas is my starting third baseman.
Okay, so that brings us to our bench now, and this is where things get a little bit more, I wouldn't say convoluted, but a little bit more like there are other options here because obviously Sebi Zavala is going to be your backup catcher. That's just pretty clear already. He hasn't, lit the world on fire in spring, but he hasn't looked bad either offensively. And defensively, he's looked pretty good as well, throwing out runners. So
Yeah.
Sebi Zavala is going to be your backup catcher here. Obviously, Luke Raley is going to have to be on that bench because Dominic Canzone is starting in left field. So those two, I feel like, are as close to locks as you can get. But the next two probably aren't. Joe, who's your next guy off the bench?
I am still riding high with Dylan Moore. One, he's actually looking really well. Like he's looking good in spring, like
Mm-hmm.
hitting very well. Hit a moonshot of a home run yesterday, or is that yesterday? Regardless,
Yeah, yesterday.
yesterday. And so he is my utility man, probably my weak side platoon in the outfield if I need to, with Canzone and Rayleigh. He is a cut above the rest, I think, as far as utility guys go for this roster being MLB ready, but also like playing into like roster constructive things like Haggerty has an option, Samad Taylor has options. There's no reason to field them over Dylan Moore or the last guy, I'd say, on our roster as well.
Which I'm assuming that you and I are kind of both in agreement on this one, which is one that this is like the spot that I have been struggling with the most over the past few weeks. But I think it has to go to Luis Urias at this point. Like he, again, has looked really, really good offensively. The only way that I see this not happening is that Luis Urias gets option because he does still have options left. And Brian Anderson starts the year on the big league club because Brian Anderson does not have options. So if he wasn't to make the team, there's a good chance he's gone. And because of that, I could see there being a scenario where the Mariners say, hey, Luis's shoulder isn't great yet. Sorry, he's going to start the year on the IL. And Brian Anderson starts with the big league club just to see if he's got anything. And if not, Luis Urias comes up. Cool, done. So that's the only way that I see anything playing out differently there. But right now, Luis Urias is the other half of that platoon with Josh Rojas for me.
My one like concession, I would say, because I also have Luis Urias, but something that they've been doing in spring when Ty France is not playing first base, Brian Anderson has been over there. And so I think having him and Rayleigh as options as backup first baseman ahead of Dylan Moore, Sam Haggerty, even though he's not making our roster, I think having Anderson there could be beneficial to you as like a backup first base option if you need it versus like his flexibility of like Urias is being third, second, and short. Like you have Polanco, you have Dylan Moore, and like Roja. Like I think you have more value potentially in the backup positions that Anderson can play over Urias, but that still isn't enough for me to pick him over Luis Urias right now.
Yeah, ideally, Brian Anderson does stick with the organization down in AAA
Ugh.
Tacoma, and maybe he can go play first base down there. Like, I don't know how the roster in Tacoma is looking right now, but I don't know who's at first base. But if Brian Anderson could stick with the team and just go and play first base down in AAA, just in case, like that would be best case scenario. I highly doubt that's going to
Yeah.
happen. I'm sure he'll get picked up somewhere. Um, with that being said, so we have to talk about the guys that are gone first, and then we'll talk a little bit about this lineup and how we would construct it. I think that's where you and I are going to have some differences.
Maybe.
I think so. Sam Haggerty's getting sent down in this scenario. Samad Taylor's getting sent down in this scenario. Brian Anderson is getting sent down / going bye bye in this
Yeah.
scenario. There is one player that, because of the way this roster is constructed, the Mariners will have to DFA, which would open up a 40-man roster spot, which is how you could add in Tyson Miller. If there's not already one open right now, I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. Either way, you have to send this guy through waivers. Joe, tell me a little bit more about Taylor Trammell.
Unfortunately, he is just out of options. He does not have the ability to get sent down to Tacoma without going through waivers. And a fourth outfield type like Taylor Trammell should get picked up. He should get picked up by a majority of, MLB teams across the league, whether it's not going to be your upper echelon teams like the Dodgers, the Braves, the Yankees. But the lower level teams that, could give him even an everyday option. Like you mentioned the Athletics before as a great suitor for Taylor Trammell just to go play there and show what you've got. Because if he can play himself into an everyday role and, put up decent stats, then he is a trade chip for the Athletics in some capacity. Or, he might earn himself, a roster spot somewhere else, like free agency later down the road. Like I think about like Jake Fraley for the Reds, a guy that we didn't opt like DFA him or like whatever. Like he didn't. That's not how the Reds acquired him. However, it seemed like an outfielder that if he was on this roster right now with how he was kind of projecting at that time, he would be an odd man out. And he has flourished into a pretty decent career over there in Cincinnati. So I think Taylor Trammell could benefit from a change of scenery and just an opportunity that the Mariners unfortunately cannot grant him right now. And he's not playing bad in spring, but there are guys ahead of him that needed to play worse for him to have a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, realistically, he's played better than Luke Raley has, but the potential with Luke Raley. He's done it at the major league level, whereas Trammell just hasn't. And I love Taylor Trammell. I hope nothing but the best for him wherever he ends up going, but it seems like it's just a matter of time now before he's just off this roster. And whether he go to, I think it'd be fun to see him go to Colorado. That'd be a fun one.
Ooh,
Yeah, he'd be
that could
hitting
be sick.
nukes. Yeah. So unfortunately, Trammell is gone in this situation. Obviously, there will be plenty of roster cuts as guys who are, if they didn't make the team, were going to, just leave in free agency anyway. But as for our roster, that is our 26-man roster. So just going back over it really quick, we have our benches: Zavala, Rayleigh, Moore, and Urias. Around the infield, we have Cal catching, Ty at first base, Polanco at second base, JP at short, and Josh Rojas over there at third. And then around the outfield, we have Dom Canzone in left, Julio in center, and Mitch Haniger in right. But that brings us down to our lineup for opening day against Brian Bayo, right-handed pitcher, who was pretty damn good last year and just signed a really big extension with the Boston Red Sox. Joe, who's leading off?
JP Crawford has not lost the leadoff role yet. It is his spot to lose. He will be your leadoff hitter as many games as his body allows him to play in 2024. Do you
Yeah,
agree?
100%. Yeah, JP again is the captain. He should be the starting shortstop every day of the week. He should be your leadoff guy every day of the week. Feeding then into Julio Rodriguez, who I think that there is a possibility that Julio does move down to third later on in the season. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. But Julio, I mean, if he is as good as he looks in spring this season, he's winning the MVP. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that if he is as good that in the season as he has been this spring, he is a guy that is going to break records for the Seattle Mariners in 2024. And I think that having him bat right behind the offensive or the on base threat of JP Crawford, Julio is going to be driving in runs left and right, which kind of moves me on to our third guy, because I'm assuming you have Julio too as well, yes?
I do. I'm not in the camp that I think he should move down to 3 this year. That seems for me more so something that'll be later down the line when like skill set might change or other guys that fit into the lineup better at the 2 hole are kind of there. I don't think there's someone that fits better than Julio Rodriguez now because the second spot in the lineup for the I think in 2023 it was more valuable than the 3 spot by like OPS. It was more valuable for your best hitter to be in the 2 spot than be your 3 hole hitter. And it's just philosophy around that about lineup construction has changed. So I understand the fascination with wanting Julio Rodriguez, to be your 3 hole hitter because the 3 hole hitter that we're both going to have right now, I assume Jorge Polanco, one, he does get on base quite a bit. East Coast M's made a video. Shout out him. He made a pretty solid video with some compelling arguments talking about how Polanco has a higher walk rate and Julio's numbers in the 3 spot are just generally higher than his 2 spot like averages. But for right now, I don't know if running those like that shouldn't be like your end all be all. I think you want your best hitter batting second because there's still going to be plenty of run scoring opportunities with JP on for Julio, and then Polanco can then smack a single, and then Julio's on third, or if he's already on second because he stole second after getting on base, then he's scoring. Like having Polanco be able to drive Julio in versus like the chance of like I think there's less risk having Polanco bat 3.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that depending on what we see out of Julio and Polanco this year, because Polanco is not necessarily your prototypical like power guy that you
Mm-mm.
would expect to see at a 3-hole in a lineup, but he does have gap power, and he's a guy, especially what we've seen this spring. Like Polanco is a dynamic player. He is a great addition to this lineup, and him being able to bat even behind, let's say, JP walks to lead off a game, Julio singles, maybe JP gets a third. You got runs on first and third for Jorge Polanco. Like I think we're going to be seeing that a lot in 2024. And Polanco finding a way, because he's a veteran, he's going to find a way to drive those guys in. No longer do we have the 3 strikeouts in a row of Julio to Teo to Gino. Like those 3 found a way to kill a rally faster than I eat food, and I eat food quick. I'm fat,
I mean,
so it's like
you're talking to the wrong guy if you want
that's true.
a fast, eating
Yeah,
competition. But
that's a good point. When it comes to eating fast, Joe is second to none. That's a good point. You guys should see how fast this man eats ice cream.
I
It's
don't I
ridiculous.
don't think they want to
That's true.
or
It's
need to see it. Let's keep it under wraps here,
not
okay?
safe for work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the cleanup spot, this one I was kind of toying with because I went with Mitch Garver,
Uh-huh.
but I think Cal would be a good one on that spot as well.
I don't think there's anybody better for the cleanup spot for me than Mitch Garver. I
Mhm.
think one, if you run back-to-back switch hitters, sure, like it's cool. Like, look at me, I'm doing fun things with my lineup. No, like I think you go switch right, and then whoever your 5-hole hitter, it's probably Cal, is another switch hitter. You run the risk, I think, of because Garver's not a big strikeout guy, whereas Cal has a bigger strikeout chance, and Garver doesn't chase. You want your 4-hole hitter, I think, to be the guy that punishes the most in your lineup on just any pitch in general. Like sometimes Cal goes chasing. Mitch Garver does not do that, at least in 2023. So I think both are fine. Like I agree with you. But like say it's a right-handed pitcher in Boston, maybe I'm going Cal 4 because he had, the 2 home run game and like he just dominates the AL East. But in Safeco, whoa.
What year is it?
Whoa! In T-Mobile, I'll probably lean Mitch Garver batting 4. But I think it's a pretty safe conversation for the number 5 guy, which is Cal Raleigh.
Yeah, I think that you make a good point there. Whereas Cal is a guy who maybe has a little bit more swing and miss in his game and is going to chase outside the strike zone, whereas Garver really doesn't. And Garver, we saw it last year with the Texas Rangers. He punishes baseballs, and he is such a big force in the middle of that lineup, especially for a World Series winning team, that I think it just makes sense. And when you have, so it would go left, right, switch. So if you're facing, a right-handed pitcher in that scenario, then you're going to have both Polanco and Cal batting left-handed, which is both their strong sides.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that versus right-handed pitcher, specifically Brian Bayo in this scenario for the opening day roster, the 1 through 5 in this lineup is ridiculous. As for 6, 7, and 8, I'll be interested to see where you and I go here because this is where I really think that we might start to differ. Who do you have at 6?
I think he is playing himself. He's playing well enough to bat 6 right now, and it is Mitch Haniger. I think he has earned his keep and is a more proven hitter at the MLB level than the latter 3 here in this lineup. You might argue Ty France, but it's basically whoever had a better spring, I think, was going to be your 6-hole after Cal, was either Mitch or Ty. But of course, Scott and lineup construction enthusiasts, you're not going to go another right-handed hitter in the 7th hole, are you?
Nope.
And that guy is
Dominic Canzone batting 7.
correct. Dom Canzone
Yeah.
playing left field, batting 7th.
Mm-hmm. Which means that we have Ty France batting 8th,
Uh-huh.
and then Josh Rojas batting 9th.
Yeah, so you're we might have different. No.
Ah,
Same
you know?
wavelength. Same wavelength. I also think this is probably what's on Fangraph's roster resource right now, realistically.
Oh,
I think that's probably like this is I'd say the most common lineup right now, outside of if you're including Luke Rayleigh. I think it just makes sense composition wise as well. Like you've got on base threat at the top. Your best overall hitter, batting second, a kind of I don't want to say speed power combo guy because it's like he's not really like great at both in Polanco, but he has decent speed and he can hit for decent power. And then you've got your true like not like all or nothing guy with Garver, but like your true big power hitter that one will not kill a rally with a strikeout more than likely. And then Cal, you've just got unlimited power. Just unlimited power, like just unleash on it. And as far as like Mitch and Ty, like you want your faster guy, I think, higher in the lineup. Mitch Haniger's faster than Ty France.
That's not hard.
I mean, Ty's looking pretty. He's looking a
It's
little
true.
lean and quick, going
That is
first to third
true.
on some balls, tagging up on
Mhm.
fly balls from in center, going second to third. But right now, it's just to me, it is a very easy 1 through 9, which I'm not mad at. But also, hopefully, there are some guys that kind of like fight tooth and nail to either climb the lineup or we're not having to push guys down the lineup because they're struggling.
That kind of leaves our lineup as follows, with JP leading off, Julio batting second, Polanco batting third, Garver fourth, Cal Raleigh fifth, Mitch Haniger sixth, Dom Canzone seventh, Ty France at the 8 spot, and Josh Rojas in the 9 hole. Kind of as like, I think Rojas in the 9 spot, we don't really talk much about it, but I think that makes a lot of sense. Like Josh Rojas, he was there last year, he looked pretty good in the 9 hole. When Luis Urias is in the lineup, does anything change for you?
Not really. As far as so lineup versus a left-handed pitcher, some things change. Like Cal moves down and Polanco moves down. So for me, I've got JP, Julio, Garver, Mitch Haniger, then Jorge Polanco,
Okay.
and then Ty, then Cal, and then I have Dylan Moore getting left field over Rayleigh and Canzone against the lefty. It gets like a tough lefty. Like Dylan Moore, he's there to crush lefties, so I have him batting 8, and then Urias batting 9. That would be how I would kind of organize the lineup against a left-handed pitcher. Polanco, he's good against both. His career splits as a switch hitter aren't necessarily like they're not super drastic, except you said his, left-handed swing, it's his better side. It's his power side more so as well. Like he doesn't hit for as much power, so I moved him out of the 3 spot into the 5 spot to allow Garver and Haniger, who crush left-handed pitching, to really take advantage of that. And then I didn't want to put him behind Ty to allow someone to get on base for potentially Ty to continue hitting. Because I think if you go Garver, Haniger, France, those are probably your 3 slowest guys outside of like maybe Cal. Like Cal's probably pushing it there, but yeah, I would orchestrate the lineup against a lefty in that way, and then don't even get me started if Sebi Savalo's playing because immediately Sebi Savalo's going to the 9 hole, and whoever's behind Cal then moves up 1.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be, there's a good chance that there are plenty of times that we see that. So let's compare that really quick, Joe, just to kind of wrap a bow on this thing to the 2023 opening day lineup. You ready?
Sure.
2023 opening day lineup. Julio Rodriguez leading off. Colton Wong batting second.
Lol.
Ty France batting third. Teoscar Hernandez batting 4. Cal Raleigh catching and batting 5th. Eugenio Suarez batting 6th. Jared Kelenic batting 7th. Tommy LaStella batting 8th. And JP Crawford batting 9 once again with Luis Castillo on the mound. That's night and day.
So much better this year.
There is no, like, if you are trying to argue that the lineup from the 2023's opening day is any better than this one, A, I want what you're smoking. And B, it's just not true. Like, you look at this lineup is so much better contact-wise. They have, like, Tommy LaStella's not in this lineup. They actually have a real DH. Like, Colton Wong, I mean, if Jorge Polanco is worse than Colton Wong was last year, I'm going to get Polanco tattooed on my butt. So after going over the Mariners 2024 roster, the real question is this team going to make it back to the playoffs? And Joe went through and simulated it on MLB The Show. Go ahead and check that one out on the screen now. We appreciate you guys watching episode 71 of the Hit It Here podcast presented by Bet Online, the Reggie Stalker episode of the Hit It Here podcast, and go Mariners.